want to show some things that I've actually never shared in public. Just felt like this is the right group to share it with. In the past decade, I've been helping to build the AR ecosystem as an entrepreneur, as the founder of AWE, the largest conference for AR, which took place last week in California, and also recently in investing in AR startups. But today I want to talk about something that is really near and dear to my heart. We've seen great advancements in the technology over the past decade, but I feel like in terms of how we design applications, AR applications, we're not taking advantage of the amazing capabilities, the interactivity of AR. And although in the past maybe 5, 6 years I've been mostly focused on revenue driving opportunities, which is mostly in the enterprise, the demos today are going to be about AR games. And these are prototypes that I built with my team years ago. And again, this is an exclusive, John. You here? You're getting an exclusive. Okay, so before we start, just want to share with you this kind of silly thing that I put together about 5 years ago when I was kind of not happy with the type of AR applications or games that were put out there. So I decided to do kind of a tongue-in-cheek with the 3 laws of robotics and created 3 laws of AR design, which are super simple, but it was kind of a great way for me to evaluate our design as well as others. And the first rule is super simple. It makes sense. Augmentation must emerge from the real world and relate to it. You don't want to see something slapped on the real world without any connection to it, right? Makes total sense. Second thing is that it must not distract you from reality. If you want to distract from reality, do VR, don't do AR, right? And that's something that still many applications to date are kind of missing the point. If you're talking with someone or if you're doing something and you're distracted, it means something in the way the app was designed is wrong. And the third, it's kind of just a litmus test to see if this specific use case really requires AR or should be done in a different way. It could be VR, it could be on a 2-dimensional screen, maybe on a mobile device. But the AR experience has to be superior than any other way of delivering that kind of experience. Otherwise, again, why doing it? And we see some people kind of slap AR on everything, and I think sometimes it's pretty painful. So these are the laws. Let's try to use that as we go through some of those demos. First, I'm excited to show you the first ever AR campaign on the iPhone. Something that we created back in 2008, and it was published in 2009. I don't know if you know, but back then the iPhone operating system did not allow actually to run any AR applications on it. So we had to hack it. So this is actually done on an unlocked phone, iPhone 3, not even 3GS, iPhone 3, which I think is like, today it's easily 1 million times faster and better. So again, the first one, and it was to promote the iPhone distribution in Israel back in 2009. So all you do is you launch it, you point to this marker, and then you see another iPhone. Okay, so that was cool. I mean, we've seen many of those, but I wanted to take it a step further. So I said, look, what if this iPhone, you can actually operate it like a real iPhone? So what happens when you tap on an app? Actually launches the app. And that blew people away on YouTube. It was the first and only viral video I've ever had. But just this idea of an iPhone and inside an iPhone, people played with this. It became huge. So that's the first one. Now, the marker that you see behind here may look familiar. For some of you, how many of you have used Vuforia? You know, all of you know Vuforia. It's probably the most common AR platform out there. So this is Vuforia before it was Vuforia. was by a company in Austria. Together we developed this SDK for the iPhone for the first time. And this was, I think, the first app that actually was delivered to people. A couple of years later, it was actually acquired by Qualcomm, and the rest is history. But this is really before it was Vuforia. So then, after doing this, we said, okay, let's build something meaningful. And we thought that games, especially educational games for young kids, would be the best way to take advantage of that. So we built something that we called Put a Spell. And it was meant to teach young kids, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, how to spell. And it looked something like this. You can get sound. You can get the sound here. Never mind, you can do it without sound. So as you can see, there's a bunch of cards, letter cards around, and kind of a main area, that's where you play. And it's a simple fill the blank type of game. Yeah, it is working. A little Put a Spell song in the background. So you have a bunch of cards, and it was based on the idea that when many studies that show that when you touch things, when you interact with physical things, you actually retain more, you remember better. So here you have, cards for all the letters of the alphabet, and when you point your phone to it, which you'll see in a second, this is the panda. I would introduce the game for you. And by the way, the panda was interactive. If you scratch it, it would laugh. If you lower the finger, it will bow for you. But this is the game. So you have a word and a missing letter, and then you have to find the missing letter by pointing to the right card. And the game will actually pronounce those letters. So in a sense, a kid could play it without a parent telling them this is an A or this is a K. You can see the performance is not amazing on this iPhone 3. But we actually tested it with, I think the youngest was a 4-year-old girl, and it wasn't easy. Just holding the phone without blocking the camera was a challenge. So typically you would see a parent holding one side, the kid holding the other side. But it was a very intriguing experience for kids. So that's the first one, which did never show the light of day, as was never published because, again, Qualcomm acquired Vuforia before this was ready. But I think, from the testing, we learned a lot about what kids can and cannot do in this experience. Second one is actually another campaign that we did with Augmento, when Augmento was, came to life. And I think that still to this day, we haven't seen anything that is at that level of interactivity. It's a Dos Equis bottle. You point to it, it tracks the bottle, and allows you to toss rings on it. So that was when paper toss was huge. Remember that, paper toss? It's the exact same year. So here you have a virtual ring interacting with a physical bottle. It was actually fun. I mean, you had to be in a certain angle to be able to capture the tracker, because the trackers this time were pretty horrible. But look at this, just the sound of this virtual ring hitting the bottle was priceless. Okay, so then we became a bit more sophisticated in the way we design things. We saw this really cool, no, actually that's before that. That's, we started working with Pepsi and came up with different ideas. And we're seeing today, many applications that detect the bottle and do something on top of it. But we wanted to do something, again, more interactive that actually emerges from the actual thing. So here you have the letters of Mountain Dew. starting to roll like a slot machine, and you have to put it right. So you have to stop it at D, E, W, of course. And if you do, you get a bunch of money. So we showed them that concept. They liked it, but they never actually went for it in a big way. So maybe now they'll come back to those. All right, next was, we saw this really cool technique from a startup in the UK called Obvious Engineering, which is now part of Snap. And they basically had a way to manipulate real objects. Have you guys seen anything like this before? You can actually make the bottle wobbly in real time. It's actually pretty simple to do. I don't know why more people don't do that. I mean, we've seen that in kind of surfaces that change their shape. But you know, an object in your hand that can actually change its shape, I think that's super cool. So we thought, you know, what can we do with this? And then we created this campaign with Pepsi. Here you go. Can you get more sound a little bit? Okay, so what do we see here? We see a real bottle with a real label on it. And when you point the iPhone, I think this is the iPhone 4 already, way more advanced. So you point it to this label, it detects the label, and understands it's part of a bottle, so it knows the entire shape of the bottle. And then this red button is virtual, but it almost feels like it's there. We wanted to do it on the actual logo, but Pepsi didn't like, you know, covering the logo, so we had to do it separately. And then it's basically a beatbox machine, right? So once you press the record button, you can record a sound. This is my amazing beatbox capabilities. And then you can see a visual representation of your voice or the sound you're making. While the label is also kind of contracting based on the same kind of tone and speed. And you can even scratch. And the real label will move, it seems like it's actually moving right and left. Now what if you want to add another track? You just swipe and you get another bottle. Now which one of these bottles is the real one and which one is the virtual? It's actually hard to tell. And then you can add another track. And this track will have different visual effect and a different type of sound. See the max here shines when it hears your voice. Then you can add even a third bottle. So we thought, you know, let's use, instead of creating a menu with screens, let's use the actual physical objects as the menu.
Pepsi! Pepsi!
You can hear all three together. You can record it, share it, and you know the rest. All right, so these are some of the campaigns that we created just to create some more interactive experiences with real objects. But the next challenge was to create a game where kids of all ages can play, and they would spend more time looking around in the real world than looking at the screen. Okay, so think about a game where 95% of the time the kid looks around, looking for things, and then just use the phone to do like a quick thing with it. So we thought about it for months, and then one of the developers came to me and basically showed this little thing. It's a capability to detect circles in the real world. That's all it can do. So here, it's an example. You go into an office with a bunch of circles. Whenever you point to it, it creates a bubble with the image of that circle. So you get the colors, you get sometimes the text, any circle out there. So now think about, you know, what game would you build with this capability? Detecting circles anywhere in the real world, just using your phone. even there's occlusion, you see. All right, so here's what we came up with. And this is still a very crude concept designed by one of the engineers, so it really looks horrible. But work with me here on the idea. So remember the hungry caterpillar, everybody? You guys have kids? Or used to have like young kids? Anybody? Okay, cool. So hungry caterpillar was the inspiration here. What if this caterpillar eats circles in the real world? And then that caterpillar could collect those circles as you kind of walk through your day, on the way to school, on the way home, when you play. You see a circle in a car or on the street or a manhole, you just grab it and it becomes, along with the texture, it becomes one of the segments in the body of the caterpillar. And then after, let's say, a week or 2 weeks, when you collect enough circles, what will happen next? It will turn into a butterfly, and then the butterfly will have all the colors and textures that you have collected over the past week. So you'll feel like it's kind of like Snap Stories, but in a different way, and for younger kids that can really experience what they went through in a week. So this is, again, a crude implementation, but it gives you kind of a sense of how this would go. Look, you grab circles, you feed them to your caterpillar, it eats the circle, it becomes one of the segments. We added this thing of kind of feeding it to make it the kid more connected, emotionally connected to the caterpillar. So on and so forth. You have to see the butterfly, it's just perfection. I'm kidding. Okay, so that was the hungry caterpillar, or we like to call it the circivore, an animal that eats circles. The last game, and it's, by the way, this is 2012. The last game I want to show is called Hide and Seek, or the Pet Detective. And this was based on a new technology that, again, came from the development team, where they're able to turn anything in the world into a marker. We see more of that today, but at that point it was pretty revolutionary, and it didn't really require a lot of features. You know, in a good AR marker, you need a lot of features. This was able to do it almost on anything around the home. So we said, okay, what can you do with it? So we want a game that a kid can play in their home, where the parent doesn't have to spend too much time preparing this game for them. And it will use computer vision, it will use a way to kind of explore your home, learn more about it maybe, and have fun. So we thought about, the Mad Lib? You guys familiar with Mad Lib? So what do? I mean, the parent basically, or parent and the kid, they go and just write a few answers to questions, and then they kind of fill in the blanks in a whole story, right? So that's kind of the approach we took here, where the parent would spend maybe 2-3 minutes walking around the home and grabbing images of things that relate to the kids. It could be their book, their photo on the wall, it could be maybe their favorite CD. We still used CDs back then. And then the game would basically use those images as a way to create a whole story using those images. In this example, you see we see just 3 images are being collected. And the theme was around kind of a pet detective. So you have pets that disappeared around the home, and now you have to go and collect them. So the first step, this is the parent, basically selecting targets around the home. You drag this animal on a target, and it becomes a target. You see that it's actually tracked on that picture. Then you can move on to your second pet and hide it somewhere else around the home. In this case, it's actually through the window on the building next door. Drag it there, tap, and now it's tracked. You can see that there's a little hint. So the kid, it's not like you have to look all over the house. You have a hint of how the target is going to look like. And then the last one, favorite penguins. So this is on a notebook or on a book. That's about it. And then the next step is to actually go and look for it. That's when you hand it to the kid. Of course, the story will be much more elaborate with different steps as you uncover those hints. But the tech allows you to actually do that. So I think what I'm trying to convey here is that it's not about the tech. The tech is great. Even the crappy phones back then were able to deliver experiences. It's really about trying to see how we can use what's happening around us, whether it's people, things, places, to create experiences that engage things beyond the screen. And that was really the motto. And I think we kind of touched on some cool ideas. By the way, we tested some of these with Nickelodeon, with some kids. The reaction was very positive. But Nickelodeon, they have to focus on things that get 300 million downloads. And this wasn't in that category yet. So they waited, but again, maybe they'll come back now. So these are the ones I want to show you. What do you think so far? Again, the main purpose is inspiration. If any of you liked one of those and would like to take it further and would like to talk with me, would be happy to see how we can bring some of these things to life. The tech behind it is actually currently owned by Apple. They acquired the company a year ago. And I guess the Aar kit that we heard about last week includes some of the tech behind this. So that's kind of cool to know that it's going to be spread among many, many people. That's all I had today. Thank you.